Biblical archaeology doesn't get better than this. I'm in the Galilee, northern Israel. I'm at Tel Dan. The Bible tells us that a tribe named Dan conquered this place. They dig, and what do they find? The city of Dan. And I'm wondering, are the Homeric Danoi, the people of Helen of Troy, and the biblical Danites who built this place, are they one and the same people?
Could the Danites, who lived in Canaan, modern-day Israel, really be related to the Danoi, who lived in Mycenae, modern-day Greece? Let's see what we know about these two peoples from the ancient texts. In Homer's Odyssey, we discovered that the Danoi are migrant people. Even the word Odyssey is literally associated with these migrants. Second, we learned that they are mighty warriors that chase Helen by ship to Troy. Even the great Achilles fights in their ranks. Third, they are expert craftsmen who build the famous wooden horse that fools the Trojans. And finally, the Danoi are pagans who worship many gods. In the Bible, we find a similar profile for the Danites. We first hear about them in the story of Moses when he leaves Egypt with his 12 tribes heading to the Holy Land. Moses partitions Canaan and gives a portion to each tribe. Judah and his people, the Judahites, get Judea. This tribe later becomes the Jews. The mysterious Danites decide not to take their share and instead are the only tribe to migrate. They head north with 600 skilled warriors to a town called Laish, which they conquer and rename Dan, modern-day Tel Dan. The most famous of the Danites is Samson, a mighty warrior, more similar to the Greek Hercules than other Hebrew prophets. We also learned that the Danites are expert craftsmen, chosen to build the sacred gold-laden Ark of the Covenant. The Bible then shuns the Danites for building a temple in direct competition to Solomon's temple, where they worshipped false gods. So in the ancient texts, the Danites and the Danoi sound quite similar.
A lot of people think that the Israelites are over here, they're in the Middle East. Greek people are, in Greece. The two don't connect. Is there a connection between the Aegeans and the Israelites?
There's an ongoing, multifaceted connection between the two regions. This is pottery that's made in Greece. All this reaches Canaan through trade.
Now, what about the Philistines?
When they first come, they're very strongly Aegean. Very soon, they take in a lot of the influence from the surroundings.
The Danite territory, biblically speaking, is close to the Philistine territory, no?
There may be some sort of connection between the Danites and the Philistines. Perhaps the Danites should be connected to the Danoi, who are one of the ancient peoples in Greece. Here you have maybe a connection. And then it says that you have Dan, Danite, and Dananoi, very similar, so maybe it's connection.
What do you think?
I definitely think there are elements in the biblical story about the Danites which tells us something of a connection with the Aegean.
The Bible does give us a cryptic passage called the Song of Deborah, which would seem to state that the Danites are seafarers. The passage describes a famous battle between the 12 tribes of Israel and their oppressors, the Canaanites, led by their general, Sisera. In the passage, the Israelite leader, Deborah, leads the Israelites to battle. But one of those tribes, the Danites, does not join them. They stay in their ships. I've come to Tel Dor, located on the northern coast of Israel. This archaeological site was at one time inhabited by the Checker, a sea peoples with connections to the Aegean. Their association with this place was written about on a famous Egyptian papyrus called The Story of Wenamun. I'm here to meet with archaeologist Ilan Sharon to find out who the sea peoples were.
Who were the sea people?
The Egyptians fought against a coalition of sea peoples who are mentioned in about half a dozen Egyptian documents. The most famous document is the relief from the mortuary temple of Ramses III. On this relief, he shows two battles. One is a sea battle on the one side of the temple, and on the other side of the temple, you see a land battle.
Ramses III's mortuary temple, Medinat Habu, shows these battles in amazing detail. The relief even distinguishes between each group of sea peoples. There were the Peleset, associated with the Philistines, and their fellow Aegeans, the Jeker, who we now know migrated to Tel Dor. And then there's a mysterious group known either as the Denyen or the Danu. Sound familiar? Could these be the biblical Danites? But wait, the reliefs show yet another group of sea peoples, the Shardana. Scholars generally agree they probably came from Sardinia. And there's an archaeologist who believes he's found them in Israel. His name is Adam Zertal. What Zertal has uncovered may also connect the Shardana to the Danites through that mysterious passage in the Bible, the Song of Deborah. Amazing, unique dome-like structures whose only equivalent is found in Sardinia. And not only does this correspond with the time of the battle between Deborah and Sisera, but Sisera is not a Canaanite name. It's a Sardinian name. So the archaeology matches the biblical story. Now that we can connect three groups of migrating sea peoples, the Shardana, the Jeker, and the Philistines, with the land of Israel, it's not so crazy to connect the biblical Danites with the Danu in Egypt and the Danoi in Greece. But why would we find the Danites all the way in Greece? Maybe, during the Exodus from Egypt, some Danites traveled by land to Canaan, while others migrated north by ship to the Aegean. In order to prove that the fighters at Troy who built the wooden horse were actually Danites, we need to find this Israelite tribe in Greece.
The prophetess Deborah criticizes the tribe of Dan for not joining the battle, not fighting against Sisera. She says something that's historically very important. She's telling us, A, they didn't join, they're a marginal tribe, they're sometimes in the Confederation, sometimes out, and secondly, they stayed in their ships. There's the Mediterranean, there are ships. What's she telling us?
That the Danites were seafarers. After leaving Egypt with Moses, some of the Danites may have migrated north by sea and ended up in an area of the Aegean called Mycenae, to become the Danoi written about in Homer's Iliad.
Land ho!
But can we find archaeological evidence of this migration? Amazingly enough, right after the Jews leave Egypt, vast quantities of gold mysteriously appear in Mycenae, in what are called shaft tombs. To add to the striking discovery, archaeologists believe this gold came from Egypt. But do we have a reason to think the gold came via the Danites? When the Danites helped build the Ark of the Covenant, they covered it in gold, so we know that they are expert goldsmiths. It would make sense that they would have brought their craft and their precious metal to the Aegean. If the Danoi are really Danites who went north to Greece after the Exodus, they would most likely have stayed in contact with their fellow relatives in Israel.
We find examples of whoring after false gods that we hear about in the Bible.
We have a whole series of standing stones at Tel Dan. See that next to the wall over there?
Yeah.
5 stones placed up against the wall that have no function.
You're telling me that this is not reinforcing the wall?
Nope.
And we could be touching the transition between paganism and monotheism because it's not statues, it's stones.
I'm in Tel Dan with archaeologist David Ilan, who has one more site to show me, a unique tomb, unlike other tombs found in Israel. Does this burial place hold the answer to our archaeological prayers?
I've waited so long to see this tomb. I've read about it, heard about it. They call it the Mycenaean tomb. It's off the beaten track. Tourists don't come here. I'm very excited. I read so much about what was found in here and so on. What makes this tomb special or Mycenaean or anything like that?
It is a local variant of a chamber tomb. Most other tombs in this period are cave tombs carved out of the bedrock. This kind of massive, large, constructed chamber tomb is very unusual. There is a lot of Mycenaean pottery that came from this tomb. There was gold buttons and earrings and bracelets, lots of bronze weapons and tools, many Mycenaean vessels, some Cypriot vessels.
Is it locally made?
The clay that the Mycenaean vessels were made out of come from the region of Mycenae.
So the stuff you found here in Tel Dan, you know for a fact came from the Mycenae region.
Right. There's an Aegean element here. At the same time, there are southern Israelite material culture elements here as well. There's an amalgamation here of the two, which in a way really is what the Bible tells us the Danites are. People that stay by their boats by the sea. They're a different group. There's something strange about them. They don't quite belong. And that may be because they're somewhat Aegean in background and in behavior.
So here we are at the end of our quest, at the site that directly connects the biblical Danites with the Homeric Danoi. In our search, we found textual and archaeological evidence corroborating the Danites' biblical journey. And we've discovered both the Danites and the Danoi were skilled sailors, expert goldsmiths, and had similar religious beliefs. Most importantly, we found the definitive link that bonds these two migrant cultures. A shaft tomb in which gold and other Mycenaean treasures were discovered that speak of a direct connection between Israel and faraway Greece.